Life after life.
Layla loves to travel through parallel universes and wanted to offer us such a journey.
It's very interesting.
The friends found themselves in space, where the entire solar system was visible. The planets were living beings, but they existed at a slower pace than humans. While a whole lifetime passed for people, only a minute passed for them. Entering one of the beams, they found themselves next to the Earth, and from a bird's eye view, they observed small houses and temples immersed in vegetation.
This is Zarma Devai.
I thought you already had flying cars here, and yet you seem to be in the Stone Age.
Technological progress is not a measure of wisdom. Tell us about the creation of life. I believe my friends will find it interesting. Of course, there was no beginning, because the world is eternal. God, like everything in the world, is material. However, the materiality of the world varies. There is coarse matter, metals, minerals, liquids, air, and there are many levels of subtle matter. The more subtle the matter, the more alive, intelligent, conscious, and blissful it is. God is the subtlest matter, diffused throughout the infinite space. However, these primary atoms form a unity, meaning they, as one organism, are connected throughout infinite space, and everything that God created, He created from Himself. First, He created the world of archangels, cherubim, and seraphim. For this, He condensed His atoms, which are Him, and created a more coarse matter of the subtle level. Although it contained almost the same divine qualities, its creations did not possess the infinity of God and His unity. They were already separate beings, having boundaries, limited in the power of God's abilities, knowledge, grace, and creative energy. Then, God further condensed His atoms and formed the world of angels, where separation and limitation increased, and the power, intelligence, and bliss diminished, although they were still great compared to humans. Next, by further condensing His atoms, He created the other subtle levels. On the level following the angelic one, there were living beings similar to humans. This is your world, the world of the dead. Below it is located the world of spirits, and at the very bottom, the world of demons. On these levels, separation and limitation increased, while intelligence or consciousness weakened. Thus, ignorance and lack of knowledge emerged, and the limited love of God began to transform into various emotions, including negative ones. People lived long and happily in the subtle level, their bodies sustained from decay by angels, as even on these levels decay had appeared. However, there was no development for humans and other beings. They were naive and carefree, like children. Then God further condensed Himself and formed the physical world, where limitation, separation, and decay, the destruction of everything, reached a significant magnitude. Ignorance was complete, strength minimal, and divine love transformed into its opposite, suffering. Although a stone looks nothing like God, nevertheless, it is also Him. He is everything that exists, and when a person loses their ignorance, they see Him in everything, the person themselves is also him, but the ego does not allow immediate recognition, and being him, God in God. In one of my incarnations, I was on earth among you. You have a beautiful story about Adam and Eve. So initially, they lived in the subtle world. That was Eden. But their minds developed, and they were meant to learn about good and evil, so they were incarnated on earth, expelled from heaven. Yet it wasn't because they disobeyed God. If he wanted, they would never have desired to know good and evil. But it was God's will for them to know him. The serpent represents evil forces, spirits of evil, trying to hinder normal understanding and lead people astray. In deception, a person begins to relate wrongly to everything and falls into sin, into vices. And the apple, these are the fruits of this world: money, fame, power, a partner, family, work. And now, the person suffers as they understand good and evil. But when one comprehends everything completely, they will return back to God. And in suffering and being on earth, there will be no more necessity. Every child is like this Adam. They go through the path of temptation in this world and self-discovery through this challenging world.
Prayer time was approaching, and Devi entered the temple. Jan looked around. There were unusual icons, unlike anything else, and mandalas. One particularly struck him. On a mountain of charred corpses lay a naked god. On him, in a rider's pose, the goddess with a severed head, which she held in her hand, was copulating with him, while in her other hand she had a sword with which she had cut off her own head. On either side, caressing the god from both sides, sat two more goddesses. 3 streams of blood gushed from the severed neck of the goddess. The left one was drunk by the goddess sitting on the left, the right one by the one on the right, and the central stream was drunk by the severed head. Jan stood in shock, not understanding how such icons could exist. Devi sensed his state and said to him and to his stunned friends,
On your earth, sex that gives life, creates children, is considered something bad and shameful. But you'd better be ashamed of the weapons that take life away, create violence. However, the weapons of killing are glorified among you, and the methods of destroying people are studied from childhood. That's the real evil. Sex should be an art, as it is one of the forms of divine love, and this icon shows this art. The god on top of the corpses signifies that in spiritual sex, a man should control himself, not succumb to passion, but work with energy, be as if dead. The goddess without a head signifies that a woman should cut off her personality, ego pretensions, possessiveness, grievances, and work with energy, be conscious. The 3 streams of blood represent the 3 main channels of energy: the left, lunar; the right, solar; and the central, through which Kundalini rises during sexual intercourse, stellar. The goddess transfers the energy of the lunar and solar channels, sensuality and activity, to the other 2 goddesses, and focuses with her partner on working with the stellar channel, directing energy through it to open the Sahasrara and merge during sex with the Supreme, with the entire universe.
Devi explained this technique in detail, and the friends admired how wisely the inhabitants of this planet approached relationships between genders, using them to advance towards divinity. At the end of the explanations, the friends, giggling, exchanged glances and looked at Jan questioningly.
Oh, there are 3 of us, and you're the one and only. We should try this practice.
Jan smiled agreeably and took the hand extended to him by Leela. Returning to Earth, they went to check on Isabel. She stood there and told her friends how her father had abused her. The guys were deeply outraged, and Antoine and Alex volunteered to punish him.
He has no right to call himself a father and must pay for such actions.
Their conversation was overheard by the master, and when everyone began to express their indignation, he entered the room.
Master!
He approached and placed his hands on the shoulders of the young people. On his noble and wise face, divine love reflected.
Try to see in a person what God has created, not how a sick society has crippled him. When you see fire, you know that if you handle it carelessly, it can burn, scorch. But no one is offended by the flames and does not want to avenge it because they do not expect anything else from it. If you see a person realistically, you will not expect anything from him, and you will not have any claims against him. Yes, ignorance can be dangerous, but we are all servants of humanity. Nowadays, in our amazing and challenging times, when the fate of our civilization is being decided, it is very important for each person not to think only of themselves, but to realize their mission, their duty before the entire earth, their responsibility for the future of the people of the earth. And our task is to become servants of humanity, that is, to become people radiating love, understanding, kindness, and providing help to people, primarily in their spiritual development, as the preservation of life on the planet and the attainment of happiness depend on it. Every ignorant person seeks happiness for themselves, but overwhelmed by selfishness, greed, possessiveness, and the fears arising from them, fear or loss, jealousy, resentment, anger at those who, in their opinion, did not give them enough, or may take something away. They lose happiness and receive suffering in return. But selfless servants filled with love and rejoicing in the well-being of their neighbors and the entire world, with this one aspiration already attain a happy state of joy and bliss. Because altruism always gives birth to sublime emotions, filling the heart with blessings. They assist God in his intention to create a harmonious world filled with mutual love. And God helps them by reaching out to them with his love. Our task is to help people, pray for them to God, learn to forgive and love, even if it is very difficult. And if you respond to evil with evil, you will become like that ignorance, and evil will only increase, precisely because of this response of evil with evil. We already live poorly in this world, which is already on the brink of destruction because of this, and we can save it only by turning to love, my dear ones. Let us create a prayer so that this soul, filled with selfishness, possessiveness, and violence, can come to God.
The disciples listened attentively to the enlightened master, and their faces reflected understanding and compassion for all the lost souls of the earth. The cartoon is based on the book Life After Life. Read Life After Life on the website amazon1.org/books. Receive more interesting practices, spiritual knowledge, and gifts on the websites of our partners. You will find details in the description.